Welcome, IT changemakers, to the DEX Show with Tim Flower and Tom McGraw. Let's get into it.
Hello, changemakers. Welcome back to the DEX Show. I'm Tom McGraw, joined as ever by Tim Flower. How you doing, Tim?
Tom McGraw, doing good. Monday morning, ready to rock and roll. How about you?
Well, it's Monday morning to us, mate, but it might not be
to us.
People listening to, when we release
True.
the show. You put me under pressure now to get this out on Monday morning. Nobody mentioned the day. Nobody do it. No, I'm doing all right. I actually had a question for you before we get to our excellent guest we've got today. You've had an illustrious career, Tim. You've worked in and with a few different IT environments. Was there any which was like a nightmare IT environment, like where there was fundamental conditions that made IT, if not impossible, incredibly convoluted and frustrating? Did any stand out? You have to name names here. You can definitely.
No, so I think folks know that my IT career was in Hartford, Connecticut. So it was an insurance capital of the world, and in the early days of distributed computing, IT tried to lock down absolutely every setting and file and version, and anything that deviated from exactly what was supposed to be on that machine was difficult to deal with. So those kinds of constraints were real hard to manage, because we know distributed computing, once that machine gets out into the wild, it changes. And the early days of computing, where management tools weren't what they should be, talk about being in the dark. You just didn't know what was out there. So I would say that financial. I was a contractor on a large insurance company, and they tried to control every little bit of detail on every device. It was tough to manage.
Yeah, I guess it's a complex industry, and it'll become clear in a moment, right? As I welcome our guest to the show, why I asked the question. It leads into something I want to discuss with him. But our guest today is Darren Edwards. He's end user support manager at the excellent insurance financial company. No, it's financial Tokio Marine. Correct me, Darren. Is that finance or insurance, or a bit of both?
No, it's definitely insurance. Yeah,
it is. So it is also insurance. So maybe you know something about complicated environments, but as we'll hear about Tokio Marine, they are absolutely on their game in that sense. But Darren, welcome to the show. And when we last spoke in kind of in preparation for making a show together and some other things too, which we'll get to, you were telling me actually about a previous role, which was correct me if I'm wrong, at the Ministry of Defence. And when I came away from that conversation, the more I thought about it, the more I thought I could not imagine a more complicated environment. When you factor in its public sector, factor in the obvious levels of secrecy and security you must have dealt with. I mean, do I have that right? Was it a complete nightmare, shall we say? And can you give any illustrations of just how complicated an environment it was to work in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate you having me on the show. So I spent quite a long time in the Ministry of Defence, 15 and a half years, all told, pretty much from the beginning of my career until about 15 months ago. And yeah, it was complicated. I don't think I fully appreciated that at the time, all right, because I spent so long there. From the very, very early part of my career until now, and it's only really since I have left and then I look back that I fully appreciate how complicated it was. And you've kind of hit on really the key ones there around security. That's the main complication from an organisation like the MOD. But then I was thinking about it as well in preparation for talking here. And just the sheer size of that organisation, right? The number of systems, applications, services that are being run. But then beyond that, it's also not just the size, but the length of time that some of those systems and those applications are running for, right? So some of the legacy systems that you end up supporting. So, there were systems that and applications that we were supporting, or as part when I was on the service desk, for example, sort of way back when, that I'm pretty sure were conceived before I was even born, right? That's how old some of these systems are.
Yeah.
And there's some good reasons for that. There's the tried and tested systems, right? They do what they need to do and they work. So therefore, we wouldn't necessarily want to risk changing them. There might not be something else out there. Some of the systems are really bespoke. So one of the things that I've sort of noticed since moving out and joining TMHCC is just how much bespoke IT we did use and we did support when I was in the Ministry of Defence, compared to your kind of COTS off the shelf stuff now that I'm supporting, and that we're looking after here. And the IT that I work on day to day is the IT actually now that we use in our normal day-to-day lives as well, which I didn't really have a lot of. I didn't really have any concept of when I was in the MOD. There's a silly example, just being Teams, for example. Really have much concept or use of Teams when I was in the MOD. I've only really used that since I've been out.
You sparked my curiosity with an extra question, Darren, regarding MOD. So obviously, if American listeners, it's equivalent to the Department of Defense, Tim, I think, right? That's what you have out there, yeah. Obviously, there's includes presumably a lot of soldiers. They're included within the MOD itself's remit, right? The soldiers today, what do they get? Do they have an iPad each? Do they have a phone? What is the arrangement for a modern soldier today in terms of connectivity or devices?
That's a really good question, actually. I don't actually know the answer to that. So MOD is massive, right? So that's kind of back to what I was saying. It was huge. I never supported directly soldiers, if you like, on the ground. Sure. I worked in a slightly different part of the Ministry of Defence, but yeah, I guess that I'm sure that there will be a persona for that. Those people, right? And they must get some sort of level of standard access and kit.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't. Maybe a smartphone would be a complicated thing to have if you're, somewhere you're not publicly
maybe a sat phone
or declared to be. I don't know. I'm sure it throws up some interesting riddles. But talk to me, Darren, about, obviously you just mentioned the career move you made 15 months ago from the MOD to Tokio Marine, long-term NextThink customer. I know I've spoken to some of your colleagues down the years about their use of NextThink and their employee experience policy, but talk to me a bit about the culture shock and with any examples that really illustrate what was so different. I know you've already mentioned kind of the tech that you encountered being the same as you had at home, but anything beyond that?
Yeah, so I guess a lot of it is around the tech for sure. For example, just having the internet at my desk on the laptop that I used to work was quite baffling to me at the time. So when I was at the MOD, we didn't have internet to our desk, didn't have laptops either. I wasn't really able to work from home in the same way that we do day to day now. So just having ready access to the internet, if I needed to use the internet for any particular reason, that was totally air gapped. In the early part of my career, that was in a completely different space in the building. Eventually it came into the room, but you'd have to move away from your desk. So some real sort of tricky intricacies around just accessing the internet right day to day, which I think we all take for granted for. So just jumping onto Google to figure out how to fix something or how to run something or execute something or do something. That luxury wasn't really in existence when I was at the MOD. It wasn't consumable in a nice easy sense. I think what I've noticed, one of the big culture shocks, I guess, is and I was trying to figure out the best way of saying this, but maybe like the speed of change or speed of delivery. So here at Tokio Marine and maybe at other sort of private industry sort of firms, I guess there's more of an acceptance of trying things and failing fast, that kind of concept. There are loads of different reasons for that. Yeah, maybe money, finance driven, or maybe just because there's more of a risk appetite there. Whereas in the MOD, obviously, there's a really restrained risk appetite. It's taxpayers' money, so as well. So if we wanted to try something new, do something new, bring something in, adopt a new process, come up with some new idea or something like that, it was slower to market, if you like. And I think since I've joined TMHEC, I've found that things move at a much faster pace, which is great for me. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to move and cut my teeth in the private sector. But just to kind of flip your question, Tom, slightly, I think, and I was thinking about this over the last couple of weeks, actually, since we last spoke. And I think foundationally, I've noticed that that maybe things aren't so different, right? So yeah, technology and access to money and the way that the two organizations that I've worked for are set up, yeah, they're quite different. But actually, what we do and what we deliver as IT professionals and IT support guys or IT operations people, it's all much of a muchness, right? I've left one organization, joined another in IT operations, and it's still really all about enabling the business to work, provide a great customer service, and provide the right level of technology to the right people so that they can perform effectively and efficiently. I think what I've noticed is different is the mission's just different, right? The mission at the MOD very different to the mission, if you like, at TMHCC. But ultimately, as IT, as someone who works in IT operations and IT support, still just enabling that business, the end business, to the end user, of the business to be able to deliver.
Totally.
So Darren, welcome to the show. Always love talking with customers and get your experiences. So it hits me that there's multiple kinds of culture shocks, right? You move from one company to another, you've got to get accustomed to how things work there and how they change. Like you talked about the speed of delivery. The other culture shock, though, is in your existing environment, bringing in a new capability, bringing in new tools that everyone will be able to take advantage of. And I'm always interested to hear about those early holy cow kind of moments, because I experienced them myself, and now being here, I experienced them a lot. That moment where you realize this changes everything, and not just for me, and not just for the people I work with, but for our employees. Talk about your first experiences with NextThink. I'd love to know what they were and how that technology struck you in the early days of using it.
Sure, yeah. So NextThink really interesting actually. I hadn't experienced or NextThink or digital experience really until I left and joined TMHCC. As I say, relatively sheltered, I think maybe in the MOD in that sense. When I joined TMHCC, NextThink was very much in place. It had its place. It was being used,
Right.
quite heavily. Quite a fair amount of investment had been put in, and there was a really good partnership, I think, between TMHCC and NextThink, and that's really grown actually over the last 15 months or so, even more so. I was quite blown away by it, the power of the tool, how much information was available at my fingertips. So questions that maybe I would have asked myself, back in previous roles that didn't have the answers to. I'd have to come up with anecdotal answers to some questions. How are people feeling about IT and about us, and how do I get these questions out there to the business that I want to ask and answer? Moving away from just pinging out emails to random groups of people to now we've got user sentiment surveys where we can ping these questions out in as many times as we want, and we can make sure we don't hit the same people, and we can collate that and bring that information back and collate it and mine it and look at it. I thought that was really, really powerful. And also maybe more specifically for me in my role in end user support, the L1 checklists. That was quite a powerful tool and something that I'd never really come across before. I guess I kind of liken that back to some of the sort of knowledge management processes that I tend to think about a lot in my current role. And actually that L1 checklist takes a lot of that stuff away. It kind of does the work for you. So all of a sudden that whole stream of knowledge management goes away because the tool is providing the analyst with the information they need, and then it's asking them the right questions, it's providing somebody answers to those questions, it's prompting them as well, which I thought that was really, really powerful, and it was new to me, and DEX as well in particular was a whole new concept for me, and it's really interesting. I moved into the private sector for a variety of different reasons. One of them was because I'd started to kind of see in the round, LinkedIn and stuff like that. I'd started to see the term end user experience, head of end user experience lead, customer experience manager, whatever. Those types of roles. Never really seen those before where I was working, but and I'd not really experienced any of that type of language before. And when I saw those types of roles and those jobs popping up, it kind of really resonated with me, and it kind of brought me back actually to want to get back into sort of traditional IT service management, because it felt like it had moved slightly. So I had kind of had a two-phase career in the MOD. The first half of which was in the kind of corporate service management space, and the second half was slightly different. And it was when I started seeing that sort of stuff, it brought me back. It brought me back to wanting to be in service management. I say when I joined TMATC and started to play with NextThink and starting to look into our DEX scores and digital experience and customer experience. It's a powerful tool and something that I think is really interesting for IT professionals.
And talk a little bit about how it connects with the transformation initiative that you've got happening right now at Tokio Marine.
So that transformation initiative has again that started before I joined, and actually was the reason why my role and actually end user experience, the end user experience team at TMHCC was created. So TMHCC went through a kind of a period of unprecedented growth throughout COVID. Was quite successful, and the company really grew. The business obviously therefore understood that it needed to focus on its supporting services and scaling those to meet the needs of the business, so it could continue to attract and retain world-class talent in its business and continue to grow and maintain. And that kicked off the IT transformation. So when I kind of started, it was into this brand new end user experience team, of which there was a new role, head of end user experience, my role, one of my direct peers, and then all of the teams that kind of flow out of that, I guess. The transformation itself was really about aligning technology more closely with the business. So if you think implementing a product model, essentially, but then also with some supporting shared services, so products and services and platforms is the way we split them down, and end user experience lives within platforms, as it kind of cuts across everything, right? IT, product, business, etc. We've pretty much come to the end of that transformation now. It was I think it was 18 months to 2 years, the transformation from beginning to end. As I say, I kind of joined within it, and it's moving into a more BAU state now, and we need to obviously then try and find a way of maintaining the successes that we've kind of gone throughout the transformation.
Right. Cool. And what about the overall employee experience initiative at the company? How was IT pulled into that? Was it made a part of it, or is the employee's experience with technology a priority at the wider organization? How do you connect the two?
Yeah, so I did give this some real thought, actually. So I think that the organisation recognising that it needed to kick off an IT transformation, and then part of that transformation was creating an end user experience team. I think probably answers that question, right? In that, the business did understand that employee experience is vital now, critical now to any successful business. And I think I've mentioned already that the business recognised that to attract and retain world-class talent, which it needs to successfully operate, you need good employee experience. I think that's almost becoming an expected thing now within our work environments. So I think it was definitely sort of driven by the business initially, and then from an IT perspective, we're very end user experience focused, and obviously I would say that because I'm in the end user experience team, right? But for sure, it's everything. I guess it's what drives us, right? Day to day, it's our bread and butter. It's what we think about. What value are we adding? How are we meeting the needs of the business? Are the users happy, etc. That sort of stuff.
So how about the chicken or the egg? Which one came first? Do you think that the emphasis on employee experience reoriented how IT thinks, or was it the other way around?
Oh, that's a toughie. I guess maybe embryonically, the organisation. Actually, no, maybe not. I'm going to change my mind here. I think IT has probably driven the end user experience agenda, born out of the fact that there was an IT transformation at hand. So I think the business recognised it needed to do something with the supporting services, of which one was IT. But actually, I think end user experience being what it is to IT has probably helped to lead on that.
Cool.
Is there anything else on that remit, Darren, worth adding? like in terms of fully articulating what the team is overseeing and
Yeah,
owning?
sure. So from an end user experience perspective, our remit is fairly broad. So it's kind of split logically into sort of two arms. So end user support, of which I look after, is your traditional IT service desk, first point of contact for our end users in the TMHCC international business. But we also get more involved and think more about the service that we're providing as an IT organization to the business. So we look after a lot of the metrics and the reporting across IT, surveys, sentiment survey being one, but obviously our service management tool set as well. So we send out surveys at the end of every ticket. We collect those metrics and we quite fastidiously go through the comments that were provided on those surveys, and I guess through life sort of ticket management. So yeah, a lot of the standard stuff, request management, incident management, that kind of thing. And then the other half is our end user technology team, which is a bit more focused on the technology itself. So we refer to them as our second line team, but it's desktop support, desktop implementation, builds, patching, vulnerability management, that kind of thing. And actually, I think it was slightly different back in the day, but that's kind of where NextThink sort of came from for TMATC. Actually, I think was from a technology perspective first, and then that's taught us about digital experience and what that means and why that's important. And actually, now I think we've maybe looked at NextThink initially as a tool to use, an IT or technology tool to use, and I think now we look at it quite differently now that we're more into the digital experience and we use it more as a sentiment capture tool and to ask maybe some of those more existential questions, really.
Cool. And how do you communicate what you're doing with the wider organization?
Yeah, sure. So we
Beyond sending them surveys,
yeah,
of course,
of course.
Darren. I mean, with the
Yeah,
wider
we do love a
focus.
survey. So we try and you said we did. I guess a kind of typical kind of catchphrase, I guess. So with the information that we do glean from our business, from our end users, through a variety of mechanisms. So we kind of kicked off about 12 months ago some user forums. Where we're collecting different people from across the business, trying to make sure that they're geographically disparate. They're not all from the same line of business. I'm trying to, I guess, really get involved in inactive listening, right? Asking the end users what they need from IT, what they are getting, what they're not getting, how we can make things better. Plus all the survey stuff that we've obviously talked about. And then we try and engage in these You Said We Did campaigns. So we try and capture the top 3 things that we've done in that reporting period. Typically it's been sort of 6 months, but we might try and accelerate that, make that a bit more often, depending on what happens over the course of the next 12 months, and especially with the data that we get out of our most recent user sentiment campaign. So that's kind of our biggest thing, really. For us, it's we had a good conversation a little while ago actually about banging the drum within IT and making sure that we celebrate our successes, but then equally, really for us, that the real achievement, right, is seeing that rise in employee satisfaction, and obviously we measure that through our DEX score. So really, what we want to focus on is finding those continual service improvement initiatives that we can pick up on and drive forward, and then see that translate into an improvement in our DEX score and ultimately that the happiness and efficiency and effectiveness of our user base, rather than just continually kind of commemorating our own achievements and putting that out there across the business. So I guess, which is why we sort of try and focus on the You Said We Did campaigns to date anyway. We have.
Makes sense. Let's actually pick up on something you just alluded to, actually, which is this idea. You mentioned it before when we spoke about adding value. The kind of guiding principle of the team, as I understand it, is to add value at every interaction, at every stage that you get involved in. Talk to us about how you measure that, how you define value, and illustrate how it's being done.
Yeah, sure. So that's I guess that's a little bit of a personal adage of mine. more than
Or is
anything.
it
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. We'll just reframe the question. It's fine.
Yeah. So that's something that maybe that I've always focused on throughout my career. So as someone who's worked in technology for my entire career, interestingly, technology wasn't something that I'd really actively decided I was going to work in or went after. When I joined the MOD, technology wasn't the space I was necessarily looking to get into. I kind of ended up in technology, and from there, I actually found that what I really enjoy is enabling people to work and fixing stuff for people, even if I'm not fixing it myself. But getting them back working again, facilitating their business and making them successful. That's kind of my bag, right? Customer service, customer experience. But it took me a little while to understand that's what I was about, especially working in IT. And I think it was at some point early-ish, I guess, in my career, is that kind of came to mind really about as a team, as an IT service desk team, which is where I worked back at the start, that we should be adding value to everything we do, right? Obviously, things need to be repeatable and on the IT service desk, and we have to do a lot of the same. Undertake a lot of the same tasks over and over and repeatably, and especially back then 10 plus years ago, 15 years ago, there wasn't as much automation as there is today. But equally, what we don't want to become is just a kind of dumping ground for tasks, menial tasks, right? That don't necessarily have to be done within that service desk space. That we should be adding value to everything we do, and that's where I started to question everything that we were doing on the service desk that I was working in at that time. Each ticket, each update I was putting on, each interaction I was having with an end user or within IT or with the business, and just making sure that we were adding value, and if we weren't, questioning exactly what we were doing in the chain. Were we just acting as this kind of middle house because we were the IT service desk? A good example of that, I guess, or one of the most frustrating things I used to find was tickets coming back from other teams to the service desk to be reassigned out somewhere else, right? So that was maybe the thing that really triggered it for me. It was like, well, what's the point of this? Everyone, we have knowledge bases and we've got workflows and processes. Why are we bouncing things back to a service desk to go bounce back out again? We're wasting time. That can't be great for the business and for the end users. And I think that's where I kicked that off from in my own mind. And I've kind of carried it forward in every role that I've had since then. And when I joined Tokio Marine, it was something that I wanted to instill in the service, moving back into the service desk sort of leadership management space. I wanted to instill that in my team and really just give them the power and the autonomy to own each individual ticket, but also own each interaction that they have, and own each activity that they undertake. Do it to the best of their ability, but don't just do it blindly. You can question why you're doing something, because if you're questioning it in your own mind, there's a possibility that maybe we're not doing it in the right way. We shouldn't be doing it that way. There's a better way of doing it. And I guess that's really been my one of my driving forces, I guess, within my own mind and trying to instill that in my team. It's just about ownership and giving them the authority and the power, I guess, to make their own decisions and question the norm.
What you described, Darren, we called ticket bounce, and the sole job of someone receiving a ticket is to prove that it's not my problem and bounce it back to somebody else. It's one of the most frustrating things of being in IT is, and it doesn't add much value to that employee, right?
Absolutely.
It's getting rid of that is a huge accomplishment on its own. But let's go back to kind of the connectivity between a couple of things you talked about: delivering value, focusing on the employee and their experience, and then communicating out your results. That all comes down to some ongoing measurement of their experience, so you can actually communicate the improvement and the value you've delivered in terms of their experience. What are some of the most significant practices you put into place through that period where you could actually measure experience?
Sure, yeah. So we're at I would say we're probably at the beginning of our journey in a lot of ways in terms of measuring our end user experience. I feel like we've been talking about digital experience, user experience, since I've been in the organisation, so for at least 15 months, and if not longer. But I still think in many ways we're at the beginning of our journey, in so much as we've just put out or just closed our first user sentiment campaign using the NextThink tool. We're just about to, we pulled together a broader customer satisfaction survey that we're planning to put out as well in the coming months. And then obviously we've got our kind of standard service management sort of ticket login survey as well that we're using to. I guess that's probably the biggest benchmark we've got about how well we're doing as an organisation. But I think we quickly realised, or we have realised, maybe not quickly, but in the last 12 months that's on its own, that's not really good enough. We need an amalgamation of all of these things to measure what we're doing and how successful we've been. But in saying that, we have we have got our DEX score. We've got our other experience scores as well. We created a few other different dashboards over the last 12 months. Probably our most successful one of which was our device compliance dashboard. So we threw that together quite a while back now, maybe 12 months ago, maybe slightly longer, and managed through that dashboard actually, and the insights that gave us to increase our compliance score from 7 to 9.91, and that was just through I guess not really knowing where we were in terms of how compliant we were device to device, putting that dashboard together within NextThink and realizing, okay, we're at 7. Well, how do we get to 9.91 then? Okay, these are the devices we need to go after. Right. So that was something that was really, really tangible for us. And then I guess another key one has been our ticket reduction. And this feels quite old school actually, talking about this sort of stuff on this show, but the number of tickets that we have had open historically has been massive, right? So in relation to the number of users that we've got, and over time we've managed to reduce that ticket backlog right down to a far more manageable level, which has now enabled our first and second line teams to move away from focusing on the number of tickets and volume of tickets we've got, and they can focus on those individual tickets themselves and give them their full attention and really add that value that we expect and that we're looking for. Also, we've really just started really properly measuring our service level agreements in a really meaningful way. We were kind of measuring them before, but maybe not as much as, or not as fastidiously as we could have been. And that's something that we've really improved on now, improved the metrics that we have within the tool that we're using. And that's something that we're heavily focused on. And I think we're going to try and bring all of these those things together, along with our DEX score, our employee experience score, to sort of drive us forward over the next 12 months, I guess.
So we know, and it sounds like you know as well, DEX is more than just the technical metrics. It's more than just the employee sentiment. It sounds like you've got those two fairly well integrated into your overall process. A lot of organizations that do a third-party survey tool, it's a standalone thing that sits on the side. Talk a little bit about how you've got the two pieces of it integrated into your overall process.
So the two pieces of DEX or
technical metrics and employee sentiment.
So we have got them separately, interestingly, at the moment. So we don't. I know you can bring the two together and give yourself a rounded score, right? But we kind of have our technical telemetry and our employee or employee end user employee experience survey. It's got DEX score essentially separate, and we've kept them separate. We have talked about bringing them together and giving ourselves a more a single score, but it's just not something that we've focused on, it's not something that we've decided to do as yet. So that's something that's been decided sort of further up in the kind of end user experience chain, and working quite closely actually with our NextThink account director as to the reasons behind that.
So gathering the technical metrics and the sentiment can also give you some insights into personas and personalization. Is that part of your aim here as well? Where has it gotten so far, and where do you?
Yeah, sure. So personas is something that we've really been talking about quite a lot over the last 12 months. So we're aware that we can't cater for the needs of every single person individually, but really what we want to do is we want to be able to meet the needs of groups of people, so far as we possibly can. We want an individual to join our organization on day one. They can be instantly, effective and work efficiently, and that it's not IT. We don't want IT to be a blocker. We want to enable them to be able to work. And personas is something that we're really hanging our hat on this year. A lot of work has gone into understanding some user personas across our organization and what makes a sensible user persona. For us, we have built out some personas now, actually in conjunction with NextThink, have been really supportive on that, and it's something that we're planning to roll out and hopefully complete by the end of this year. It's part of our end user experience strategy. And then beyond that, we want to also focus on user journey mapping as well, particularly in the kind of joiner, mover, leaver space, but also elsewhere, as well. And we've been working quite closely with our NextThink partners to try and help us build those out, and we can put those personas and the journey maps together, and hopefully come up with some really sensible personas that we can kind of hang our IT hats on.
Cool.
Superb. Anything else on the roadmap, Darren, that excites you?
Yeah, sure. I guess I don't know if it's going to be a pretty standard answer or not, but really the AI question, right? AI is massive flavour of the month from an end user experience perspective. I feel like we're on the. I don't really know if we're on the crest of a wave anymore, if we've crashed over it and we're in it, but the whole AI thing from an end user experience perspective, I think is massive, and I think that could totally change, or it probably already is actually. It's kind of changing the field that we work in. It's made me look at my own career slightly differently over the last maybe only recently is like 3 months, I think, looking into some different tools and AI tools that we might be able to bring on into our own organization to better serve the needs of our customers or our end users. And I think what it's made me look at is that if we're using some of these AI technologies and techniques in our organization, that's going to change. It's going to change my team from in terms of the IT service desk. It's going to change the way that the things we're focusing on. It's going to take us away, possibly move us away from those repeatable day-to-day activities, elevate us up to another level, and it's going to really change those IT service desk analysts' day-to-day role and probably change the types of people that we're looking for and we're recruiting. It's going to change their career trajectory. Really, I think it's really interesting, really exciting, and I think it's a big thing within end user experience that I think is going to be really, really interesting.
They're currently working on an AI app that can just mimic Tim and I's voices. Write all the questions for this show.
Right.
We're thinking differently about our career.
Not sure how I feel about that, Tom.
Approximately 5 minutes long at this point. 5 minutes left, I should say. But no, it's fantastic. Have you actually looked, Darren? You've seen? I don't know if you've seen it in person or if you've just seen NextThink publicize it. But NextThink Assist, is that something you've had an eye on? The sort of AI?
Yeah, so we've seen that. We have talked about that, and we have looked at that as well. There's a few things that we want to, or that we're working on. We want to make better use of. So within my own team, Amplify in particular, want to make better use of that within our own team. We've got NextThink Infinity in like a hybrid model, I believe, at the moment. So that's something again that we're working on to kind of to bring on, but we're not quite there yet. So it's still hybrid. So yeah, there's lots of really, I guess more preemptive actions. They're the kind of things that from my perspective, from an EUS perspective, are really interested in. Preemptive actions, more automation, how AI might be weaved into that. They're the things that get me excited for the role that I do, and looking to the future. I think the future looks really interesting. I think from an EUX perspective, an end user experience perspective, I feel like things have really changed, and I often look back and actually this show has made me really think about my own career from the beginning to where I am now, and it's put some some really interesting things in perspective, actually. I really enjoyed I've enjoyed all of my career, obviously, but I really enjoyed the early part of my career in IT, not knowing that that's really where I wanted to be, but finding that I did enjoy working in IT, but not necessarily, on the tools in the technology. I liked the what we now know as the end user experience aspect of it, but maybe wasn't necessarily known as that sort of back when I first started. I then moved away from that for sort of 7 or 8 years and did a few different other things within technology, which were really, really interesting. But again, as I said earlier on, then started seeing these roles advertised as end user experience and other flavors of that. And that's really dragged me back to ultimately to now obviously working here at TMHCC. And it's kind of really lit that fire again within me. And I think working in IT and focusing on the end user experience and the customer experience and the digital experience, it's a whole ecosystem all by itself. And I think it's really interesting. I think enabling people to work through technology, but with a focus and a lens less on the technology, but more on the end user, I think is really a really interesting space to be in.
You're brilliantly placed, given your own professional preoccupations over the last few years, to make to flourish in that sort of in this transitional.
Hopefully,
period, I would think, Darren. But I'm sure, unlike Tim and I, we're easily augmented and replaced. But no, listen, pleasure to have you on the show, Darren. We don't actually have many customers on the DEX show, and it's so enjoyable and interesting to sit and listen to the, how these ideas are being put into real practice, how the technology is being used, and really, really enjoyed having.
Thank you very much for having me, gents. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Darren.
To make sure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating of the show. Just tap the number of stars you think the podcast deserves. If you'd like to learn more about how NextThink can help you improve your digital employee experience, head over to nextthink.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.